Well, thankfully, we were up to another promo and an angle because once we got that pesky wrestling out of the way, it was time to get to the meat of the matter. And we had Paul and Solo and Jimmy Uso come out to the ring. And Paul was very somber. And you said he was the star of the show, and boy, he was. And just every conceivable type of dislikable emotion from him. Stooginess and cowardice. But he started out serious. We've got no excuses. We blame no one. Accountability is a big deal on the island of relevancy. The tribal chief, by orders of the tribal chief, we accept responsibility for the loss of at WrestleMania. At WrestleMania 39, Roman Reigns was focused. He was on his game. Yes, Solo distracted Cody, but Cody allowed himself to be distracted, and therefore Roman Reigns beat Cody. But at WrestleMania 40, Cody flipped the script. It was Seth that distracted Roman. And after 10 years of waiting for revenge, Roman Reigns gave in to temptation.
Oh, he told that story so well. We talked about it. He told it so well.
And so he got that out. And it was brilliant. And then he starts to do the deal where he starts to wind himself up. But like the phoenix rising from the ashes, he's going to do the hype promo for Roman, right? And Solo just turns to him and gets right in his face. And Paul's reaction is priceless. It's shock. First, like you're interrupting me. And then it's puzzlement and perplexion. Like, why is this happening? And then it's almost like nervousness. Like he starts trembling. Like, what are you looking at me for? And then Solo starts talking. And he says, winning and losing does matter. And there are consequences to that. And consequences mean change. And Paul gets scared like he's going to fucking spike him or something. He starts backing up. But Solo's looking at Jimmy Uso. And Uso, like, what are you looking at me for? And they have a face-off. And Uso's like, what, blah, blah, blah. But then Solo goes for the hug. He spreads his arms out. Give me the hug. So they hug. And Solo says, you're my brother, and I love you. And then he turns away, and boom, Jimmy gets attacked from behind by a guy in a hoodie. I'm telling you, all these thugs and enforcers and hired assassins and attackers, they all shop at the same sporting goods location. But in this case, boom, when he lowers the boom on Jimmy Uso, he reveals himself to be Tama Tonga. And I know that he's been in New Japan for some time, wrestling in Japan. He's never been on American television that I am aware of. The people popped, but I think, did they pop because here's another Samoan that took his fucking hoodie off? Or do that many people know potentially who Tama Tonga is?
I'm not quite sure, but they did pop, and it stood out.
Pop.
Now,
yes.
Again, a lot of people may have been expecting, well, I shouldn't say a lot of people. And again, it's Detroit. It's not a WrestleMania audience. But the expectation of Jacob Fatu is imminently going to be on TV may have caused people to think momentarily it was that. Siviafi got a big pop when people only heard the word Superfly and they screamed for that. And then they saw that's not Superfly Snuka.
Well, but I mean, Jacob Fatu at this point is still in the same position. The same audience would know him as no Tama Tonga. It's the same level of fame in the wrestling business.
That's the other thing. Tama Tonga has been a star in New Japan. I think he was a member of the Bullet Club, right? Like the early days before it became watered down. He's Haku's son. Not that anyone there would know that if they don't know him, but maybe the Detroit audience has some people there who know New Japan. But it was a surprise, and it was the debut of someone who they immediately treated seriously. Solo got over quick with the bloodline. So obviously they're going to try right away. Well, I'll let you finish talking about this whole segment.
Well, I just wonder why then how if when Jacob Fatu comes along, Lord, I hope he just didn't get a favor job because he's a member of the family, but that they plan to showcase because Tama Tonga, he looks great physically. He's in great shape. He looks much better than either one of the Usos. But I can't imagine, you may have seen him. I haven't really seen that much of him. He can't be better than Jacob Fatu.
No.
In this role or capacity.
No, and that's not to put him down in any way. It's just Jacob Fatu is someone who stands out a little more than the average wrestler with his look and certainly the things he could do with his size and his look.
So I wonder how many times a hooded fucking Samoan guy going to come in? Anyway, nevertheless.
It gives you that interesting dynamic because if you're going to assume that Jimmy is now on an island unto himself, unless he... Well, it almost looks like he's probably going to have to end up back with his brother somehow, but we'll see. But you also get the opportunity here to do Bloodline versus Bloodline.
Well, that's what I got the idea when... and we'll finish this segment, but it's almost like they're setting up some kind of potentially positive Bloodline faction versus negative Bloodline faction.
Hey.
But when... Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I'm fantasy booking, but The Rock got into Solo's ear. And he said, we need to get that belt back. We need to get rid of the dead weight.
Yeah.
And Solo did something behind Roman Reigns' back. I mean, you saw Heyman's reaction. He hit the phone out of Heyman's hand.
Well, that's what I was about to get to. When Tama Tonga attacked Jimmy, you thought, okay, Solo doesn't want to beat up his brother, but then Solo turned around and spiked him about a half a dozen times, and Heyman was mortified. And then when Solo turns to Heyman and starts to walk toward him, Paul's like, no, please, oh God, no. And he just brings him out to raise the fingers, right? Okay, we're the ones. Paul raises his phone and tries to say, call Roman Reigns, and Solo snatches the phone out of Paul's hands and stomps it, and then puts the chair over Jimmy's head and says, I love you, and then gives the ass blast to the chair that's around his head.
While Paul is screaming for them to stop.
No. So in this case, is Roman's Bloodline faction going to be the babyface Bloodline faction to save the day from the heel Bloodline faction? And we wonder which direction that little weasel Heyman's going to try to lean.
Listen, Roman Reigns lost control of the Bloodline. What's he going to have to do to get it back? Solo, Tama Tonga, whoever is in charge of them, whoever their tribal chief is. I'm going to have to call Jacob Fatu. I'm going to have to call my crazy cousin. I'm going to have to get the craziest of us all, Jacob Fatu. Because then you have a weird dynamic because, again, none of them look like Jacob Fatu. None of them have the same aura as he does. And you can bring up, if you wanted to, it's a different ownership now. He's got a record. Like
yeah.
You don't have to convince people he's a badass. It's very easy to see.
There's documents.
Yeah.
There's documents and he doesn't look clean, and he doesn't look like the typical WWE. The Usos and even Solo to be a street fighter, he's got clean fucking gear on, and he's got a clean white tape on his thumb. When Jacob comes in the gimmick that I saw him in MLW, his fucking feet are taped because he's barefoot, but his feet are taped up in dirty fucking tape, and he's got the fucking facial hair, and he's fucking dripping with sweat, and he's got a crazy fucking look, and the tribal outfit, and it's a different aura. Like you said, he gets over, well, like the next guy we're going to talk about here in a minute, Braun Breaker. He gets over people that see him cold like that.
So that could be an interesting dynamic. Again, they'll probably go in a different direction. They usually have this stuff. They have their own ideas, obviously, but The Rock.
Well, now they've heard some good ones, so they can change.
The Rock with Solo and Tama Tonga, and he could say to Tama, look, I got your dad a car. I filmed it. You may have seen the video. You have to be on my side. Against Roman, the Usos won't work with him. They'll get along with each other, but they don't want anything to do with him. He doesn't know if he could trust Heyman because Heyman loves the star power of The Rock. And Roman has no one to turn to. Huh. You know what? This is why it's been so good. Because we've been talking about this kind of stuff with the bloodline for a few years where you keep trying to guess where they're going to go next. And the only bad thing is sometimes it feels like they really take their time to get there. But what an interesting way to deal with everything coming out of WrestleMania with no Roman, no Rock.